black people are not the original inhabitants of South Africa, which, in fact, they're realizing that now. When they claimed that they owned all the land, the original inhabitants, of whom there are not many left, said, excuse me, we were the original inhabitants, you guys were migrants here as well. Which they...
So you want to tell us that in 1488, when Bartholomew Dias arrived here, it was no man's land. In 1652, when those guys, Jan van Riebeeck, arrived here, it was no man's land. That's sheer insanity. And
hey fam, Gracie here once again. Welcome back to the channel. I am hoping that from wherever you are watching me from, you are doing all right and you are amazing. And as always, to people that give support to the channel continuously, that really means a lot to me, and I don't take any of you for granted. So once again, thank you so very much for your support. We have an interesting episode today. When we say that black people, the black race, black history, and us as a people, we are under attack. The same people that stripped you of your history, the same people that stripped you of your identity are after everything that you have. Because according to them, you are the beast of the field and nothing belongs to you, and they are meant to subdue the world, including you, including everything that belongs to you. We have these Afrikaners that are actually claiming that black people did not exist in Africa before. Of course, we are going to watch these clips and you have to put your thoughts in the comment section. Let's watch these clips together. We come back and talk about it.
Black people are not the original inhabitants of South Africa, which, in fact, they're realizing that now. When they claimed that they owned all the land, the original inhabitants, of whom there are not many left, said, excuse me, we were the original inhabitants, you guys were migrants here as well, which they were. Okay, the original inhabitants of Southern Africa are called the Khoisan. In the West, the Bushmen are Khoisan. Hottentots are Khoisan. But you can't use those words anymore, you now have to call them Khoisan, okay? All right, now, and they were the inhabitants of the whole of Southern Africa. So the whole of South Africa, at one stage, were Khoisan. The black people originated in what is now Cameroon. That's where they...
Hold on, Khoisan aren't black?
No.
What are they?
They're a completely separate ethnicity all on their own. In fact, if you look at them, they're kind of yellowy. They're a light brown yellow color, right. But they look more Asian than African. They do not consider themselves African.
Interesting.
When the white guys arrive in Cape Town, so 1652 is when Dutch guys arrived there. At that stage, you could have divided South Africa almost exactly 50-50, what's now South Africa. The western half of the country was entirely Khoisan. There were no black people there. None at all. Only Khoisan. So we're Cape Towners, all that area, Khoisan people. The northern part of the country did have black people. They'd started arriving, and they were still migrating.
How long have they been there in the northern?
Well, it's a moot point, and people have debated it. It would seem that black people had probably started arriving in the northern parts of South Africa maybe 1,000 years, something like that, about 1,000 years before whites got there, right up in the north, okay? And they've been slowly moving south because it's an empty space. I mean, one of the things about Africa is it's very empty. Up until the 1950s, Africa was very empty. It's the population exploded because white colonists, the naughty white colonists, put hospitals there, and there's been this huge population explosion since the 1950s. But Africa was really very empty up until then. And so tribes moved around and just occupied new empty territory. So the guys coming down from the north, who called the Bantus, it's called the Bantu expansions, when black people came out of the Cameroons, they'd been occupying South Africa and moving systematically south, down the east coast
They were
of South Africa.
pastoralists, am I right?
Yeah, they were pastoralists, yeah. Whereas the Khoisan were hunter-gatherers. They were like aboriginals, okay, so they hadn't become pastoralists yet. The black guys are migrating down from the north and settling, doing exactly what white guys are doing. So white guys, the Dutch guys from Cape Town, were settling by moving westwards, eastwards. So the white guys are moving from Cape Town eastwards, and the black guys are moving down from the north. And they met at a place called the Fish River, which is now in the middle of South Africa at a place called, it's still called border. Everybody in South Africa calls that part of the country the border, even though there's no border there at all anymore. But there was a river called the Fish River, which is where blacks and whites first encountered each other. And then it started 100 years of warfare between whites and the Xhosa, who were the tribe that they met there. So, okay, so at that point, that would have been in around 1700. So whites and blacks first encountered each other in 1700. Okay? So whites had already been there for 100 years at that point. Black.
Ask a couple of questions. Please. So we have people like Julius Malema, who comes to Oxford University in the UK, and if I've understood correctly, he says that the blacks originally had South Africa and the whites came and dispossessed them from their lands.
Yes.
Whereas on the basis of what you've been saying, from what I understand, you've been kind of dispossessed by two groups. One coming from the north, you say the Great Lakes region of what, East Africa, migrating?
North, East and West Africa, yes.
Okay, migrating downwards since, when did they first arrive, do you know?
Well, I personally come from a town called Genadendal.
Yeah.
And in my lifetime, there was no black Africans there.
Right.
But today, they have been bussed in because of the white Afrikaners that has the farms. That's the type of labor they have. Then the people come, they don't go home, they get supplied with material to build shacks in our areas, and then that same people gets looked after by the politicians, burn down our infrastructure, then for services. So it's a recognition thing. But when you talk about Julius Malema and the narrative they're pushing, those are political narratives. They also made up a colored Afrikaan is known as a Khoisan. There is no such thing. If people look at our town, you can go to Genadendal. We've got a very well documented museum and all there. We know who our people were. The Hesekwa, the Outeniqua, the Gamtabakwa. They kept our names for all the geographical areas, but no other recognitions. So they are creating a new narrative because for people to apply, the people must apply to be Khoisan at government. And to do so, they must self-determine they are black or black African in particular. Now, the black African in particular makes the white Afrikaan black on paper. So they're going to keep everything they've stolen previously. So that's a political narrative, and Julius Malema them is doing it for their people because the rational facts will lead everyone to know that this was Hottentot country.
We still have more. There's this lady that came out to actually debunk the lies, and I think it will be a disservice if we do not watch her submission. So it's just a few minutes. Let's watch her submission, and I think it was like a court case where she was debunking all these false lies that these people are saying, and then we'll come back with our own submissions.
So you want to tell us that in 1488, when Bartholomew Dias arrived here, it was no man's land. In 1652, when those guys, Jan van Riebeeck, arrived here, it was no man's land. That's sheer insanity and drunkenness on hatred. So what I would like to know from you, although I don't think it's necessary, as Honorable Mampuru has alluded to, our royalty, our great-grandfathers and mothers, our kings and queens were robbed of their land. They were given mirrors. Now you tell us you negotiated. How can you negotiate with a person whom you don't even, because they didn't even understand these languages? How did you negotiate with them? So please, if you want this process or your inputs to be taken seriously, don't come here with sheer arrogance. We have been listening to you, insulting us, lambasting on us, calling us names, but you want us to take you seriously. That's sheer insanity.
The way you acted the previous months, the way you acted trying to fight for something you believe in, you will destroy yourself. Whether you like it or not, that will happen because South Africans are fair people and they judge, and when they judge judge harshly.
I've heard other AfriForum meetings where your
where you have presented, there's not been this arrogance. We are trying to build a South Africa. You are taking us back. En ek maak 'n bepleit met jou vandag dat your insults to the people here is unacceptable. We need to come together as a nation. Ek is Afrikaans sprekende. Vandag 52 jaar gelede is Hendrik Verwoerd doodgemaak in hierdie parlement. Jy weet dit, né? And we need to reach out to each other. You've heard people here that are hardening their hearts as a result of what you have said today. We've been sitting with this process for months to find a restorative justice solution. You have not commented on one clause of the Constitution. All you've done is you've attacked the ANC and the EFF. Why don't you comment on the provisions of the Constitution and be constructive so that we can take this process forward? It's exactly the same as Black Land First yesterday that attacked me as a white person. You've done the same to black people today. And so please, I would plead with you to reconsider your approach. And I'd urge you to consider your position. Thank you.
Please excuse my background. I have just heard that I do have a lot going on in the background. I'm in an area that literally has a lot of people. Yet I still do have to bring this episode because I think it's very, very important to actually tackle. Put your thoughts in the comment section about this entire episode and what you think. We would have left this to slide, but I think that is exactly what they want, because they want us to believe and not take them serious when they are asserting and making such narratives. Therefore, I think it is time for black people to wake up and start speaking about this thing. Because when I say that the entire black race is actually under attack, the entire black history is actually under attack, this is very serious. It is not just beginning here in Africa, on the African continent, where someone stands to claim that black people did not exist on an entire continent that has majority or majorly all the people are supposed to be black. Those are facts. And every other person that is existing on here that is not, there is something that happened to erase their identity, and that is why they are the way they are. In America, they are trying to ban the teaching of slavery or anything concerning slavery, because basically if they ban that, then people are going to forget about that. And so all of these are strategies to make sure that any atrocities that they committed is erased. And before I even get into that, I made a few notes about this very episode and the video as I was listening and noting down some things. According to history, it says that the whites arrived, or the Dutch arrived in 1652 in South Africa. And the same person that was actually talking, he admits that in the north of South Africa, black people existed there. And actually, these people had existed there for more than 1,000 years. So it shocks me to hear you saying that in some areas there were black people there, but then other areas did not have anybody there. Therefore, that means black people did not exist there, because the area where you went to, you did not find people there. At the same time, he says that these two groups of people collide and meet each other, and they engage in a war of 100 years. And basically what he's trying to say is black people attacked white people they found there. And we all know that is twisted. That is very twisted. In fact, what he's saying is the exact opposite. Because what they did is when they came, the people they met, yeah, they waged war on them to make sure that they make them lose their land. If we are talking about this thing in all realities, then Shaka Zulu has to come in because he was a very great warlord. In fact, some of his tactics, war techniques and tactics are still studied even up to date. The narratives that they are spreading and forming right now is actually the actual opposite. When they say that blacks attacked them, we have to ask ourselves a question. So when the blacks attacked, did the blacks win? Because for these people to allow you to exist in their territory, you must win them and subdue them. So that is another question. Did the blacks subdue them for them to allow them to exist with them peacefully? It was an engagement of so many wars, right? So many wars. And in a lot of these wars, you realize that the indigenous people won. And there are instances where the indigenous people failed and they accepted to be subdued, and that is how colonialism started. That is where we are seeing colonies where these people are like, now these are under us, right? But they are spreading the narrative that when the colonialists started establishing hospitals, then black people came. I don't know if you see any kind of similarity where literally even right now it is like, because in the West there's a lot, so black people are coming. You realize that the same people are telling black people, go back to Africa. But even in Africa, they are claiming these lands and are saying, these people did not exist here. So where is a black person supposed to go? And what did we do so bad to offend these people to an extent that they do not want to if they had any means to get rid of us, like for good, they would do it in just a second. And they are actually trying to do that. There are so many ways. There's the Australian eugenics, where they try to interbreed with them to make sure they erase the Aboriginals. In the Americas, they introduced chickenpox and it killed all the native people and left the smallest population. When they came to Africa, they introduced diseases and they thought these diseases are going to wipe out the entire continent. Chickenpox, malaria, AIDS, HIV and AIDS, all of that. Should we talk about the medicine industry and the medicines they are literally introducing to make sure that they keep the black man under control? What about the food wars where they are introducing the GMOs and they are stealing the African indigenous seeds and they are taking them to their country and they are replacing them with their own seeds, which seeds are related to actually cancer cases? What about the violence that is happening on the continent where they come out and say that black people are violent? But they are forgetting, I think I talked about it in previous episodes, that they created division among different groups because initially we were united under kingdoms, right? When you don't deal with the problems of today and you say, I will deal with that problem tomorrow, and that problem stays and stays and stays, if you procrastinate in dealing with what you need to deal with, the problem is going to grow until when you can't manage to solve it. And right now, the whole continent is under attack. Because when they get done with South Africa, they are coming for these other small countries. In fact, some of them have already started doing this. Besides them having the nature of unaliving people and all of that, you ask yourself, Why is it that they want that? They want to do this? Why is it that they love violence? Why is it that they do all that they do? And there's only one logical thing that can come to my mind. The reason behind everything they do. The reason behind the killings and the unalivings, the erasure of history, the robbing of identity is to make sure that they do not leave any stone unturned. That they don't leave any witness behind. So that when time comes for them to fully possess and inhabit and take this land, no one is going to come out to claim why they are here and who are they, because they have literally dealt with anything and they are very meticulous with details. The people they are talking about, the Khoisans, and they are calling them yellow people. This was a tactic used wherever they went. If they found a certain group of people, they would make sure that they divide you into two, so that one group attacks the other and the other one attacks the other. And in this case, they found the Khoisans in there saying that they are more Asians than black. But my thing is, when you take the Khoisans, the San people, the Bushmen, and you take them to Asia, will Asians accept them? Yes or no? The phenotypes, we all know that all humanity began here. So if they do look like Asians, I think in Africa that is where you're going to find all human phenotypes, because all human life began here. But they don't even want to talk about that. That is not an argument they can use, because of course that does not suit their narrative. The same Khoisans they are talking about, their hair is the type of hair that I have. Their nose is the type of nose that I have. Full lips. And they are saying that they did. The same tactics they used in Australia to breed with the natives and make sure they ethnically cleanse and make sure that the Aboriginals are absorbed in them is the same thing that they did with the so-called colored, because the Khoisans, those are the ones they gave the colored name. We identify ourselves with tribes, clans, and all of that. We do not identify ourselves as black. Black is some identity that has come up because of the identity they gave the American black people. Probably that is what they call us as well, even when they came here. Rewrote your history and make you forget about yourself. And now you hear black South Africans talking about we have to be one united country. We love our people, we love our white people. The same people that called you savages, some people that say there was no civilization, but all the military tactics that Shaka Zulu had, some of them are still studying that. And now, ladies and gentlemen, I had a conversation with someone that is palm colored. And this person said, When you get black aboriginals and you met them with white people, and even the offsprings met with white people, they keep breeding with each other. The black aboriginal is going to shh. But there's one thing that he said that was very important. He said, but with black people, even if their offsprings keep getting married, the melanin does not disappear. The Africanistic does not disappear. That's what they want. And that's what God can never give them. So they will do everything. Same way they said they discovered the lakes and rivers. The same lakes and rivers the indigenous people were using. The same way they wanted to create a Jewish colony in East Africa. And out of the blue, they would say that that is their land. Thank God it never happened. Black people, it's time for us to wake up and tell it to your children. Let them know the truth. At this point, the truth will set us free. And I think it is time for us to fight for our history. Because if we don't, I'll see you in another video. My name is Gracie. Peace.